We are going to deliver the America First agenda.
Today on the Morning Edition, a late-night resolution passed by the House includes both tax and spending cuts as President Trump, with Elon Musk at his side, prepares to meet with the cabinet for the first time today.
When the alarm sounds, there's no time to waste. The highly trained team at Anchorage's airport responds to emergencies in seconds. We take you inside their world later this hour.
And for generations, church hats have become a symbol of pride, dignity, and community. Explore a new collection showcasing the women surrounding Martin Luther King Jr., the crowns they wore, and the legacy that these women helped shape, as the Morning Edition starts now. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for waking up and joining us here on a Wednesday, hump day.
Yeah, and continuing along on this warm week. I don't know, Is it too early to call it fall spring?
I don't know.
I'll go with it.
I honestly feel like this is spring.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm just probably lured in because we all remember March 17th, 26 inches of snow.
Yeah, I mean, Alaska.
It can happen.
Yeah.
So, but at this point, I'm not seeing much. And we do have a lot to talk about, though, today, because Southeast, you are getting hit quite hard with a large storm. We're going to talk about your winds and your rain. 28 degrees here in the Anchorage area right now, 3 below in Fairbanks. So a little bit cooler than we've seen in the morning recently. And of course, when you factor in that wind, it does drop it. Even at 6 miles per hour, it feels like it's 15 below. When your temperatures are cold, the wind impacts it so much, even just a little bit. Here in the Anchorage area, we're at 23 at the Camel Creek Science Center, 24 over in Muldoon, 31 for you at Jay Barron, 29 at New Seward and Huffman. This is that storm that we're going to be talking about through much of the morning. It's kind of a harbinger of a change coming. This is the last storm in that round that's been moving kind of in a retrograde fashion, where typically they go from west to east. These have been coming up into the Gulf and then kind of pulling to the west. This is going to be the change. This is the last one that we see in this. It is going to bring heavy rain into the southeast area and high winds. We've already seen in one place a wind gust to 75 miles per hour. So we've got that high wind warning. Those are extended now through the morning hours, in some cases to the afternoon, and winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories. This is for at those higher elevations, White Pass, the Klondike Highway, a possibility of some heavy snow coming through. Now for the Anchorage area, and this is around South Central, this is just since midnight, so we haven't seen much, but check it out. Ketchikan's already had a ½ inch of rain since midnight. We're looking for more to come through for the day. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes.
New this morning, for the first time since taking office, President Trump will meet with his entire cabinet, and special advisor Elon Musk will be there today.
This as fired federal workers are voicing anger to lawmakers, and as several DOJ workers under Musk have resigned, saying they won't jeopardize Americans' data. Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
President Trump preparing for the first full cabinet meeting of his new term, with Elon Musk set to join, amid growing frustration over the rapid-fire cuts from his Department of Government Efficiency.
This is what democracy looks like.
Protesters outside Health and Human Services drawing attention to research cuts.
It's about whether people live and die.
Everybody move, please.
While fired federal workers went from office to office on Capitol Hill seeking help from senators.
We're in it because we love our country, and they're firing us saying that we have performance problems, and that's not the case.
Those still on the job looking for answers about that email asking them to list 5 things they did at work last week, and whether to follow Musk's word that they'll be fired for not responding, or the Trump administration's HR department saying replying is voluntary.
Well, it's somewhat voluntary, but it's also, if you don't answer, I guess you get fired. What it really is, do people exist?
That as 21 workers resigned from the U.S. digital service that turned into DOJ, saying they won't use their expertise to compromise core government systems, jeopardize sensitive data, or dismantle critical public services. Musk called them political holdovers who refuse to return to the office.
The current resolution is adopted.
All well as President Trump's legislative agenda passed its first big hurdle in the House, where Republicans narrowly voted to adopt a budget resolution funding mass deportations and tax cuts while slashing up to $2 trillion from the budget. But how is not clear, and there's a long road ahead. Republicans have acknowledged some of those cuts could come from Medicaid, an anti-poverty program that constituents rely on. The Senate adopted a separate budget resolution last week, and the two chambers now need to bridge gaps to come to one bill. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
As of January 2025, approximately more than 245,000 Alaskans are enrolled in Medicaid, representing about 33% of the state's population. According to the Alaska Department of Health, the House measure proposes an $880 billion reduction in health and energy programs over the next decade.
Turning now to Capitol coverage in Juneau as part of National Invasive Species Week. State lawmakers got a briefing on the latest plants and animals threatening Alaska's ecosystems. The state continues to fight invasive species like northern pike, reed canary grass, and elodia, which can damage watersheds and native habitats. Experts say Alaska is in better shape than the lower 48, but the threat is still growing.
But that it causes harm, whether it be environmental harm, economic harm, or harm to human health. And right now, this is very important because we're thinking a lot about the biosecurity of our country and our state.
Alaska is managing invasive species well, but Dr. Emily Reed says a state council could make efforts more efficient. Lawmakers questioned the idea, noting states like Texas and California have similar councils, but still struggle with high invasive species numbers.
I don't know when they got their state invasive species councils, but it seems, I don't know if there's good evidence to show that them having that council helped them because they're doing really badly.
Dr. Reed responded by saying that the outcomes were not indicative of whether the councils were effective, but showcased a direct need for coordination between agencies when it comes to fighting invasive species. For more information about the presentation, you can visit our website.
9 Alaska public broadcasting stations have been told to pause emergency warning system upgrades while waiting on FEMA. The critical systems are used for weather warnings and amber alerts. The general manager for Utqiagvik's KBRW shared a Corporation for Public Broadcasting notice from February 19th with Alaska's News Source Investigates. It directs public broadcasting stations to pause upgrades. Since this is a reimbursement grant system, KBRW's GM says they do not know if they'll get back the $65,000 they've already spent on a new transmitter. The GM for Unalaska's KUCB also says because the upgrade reimbursement status is in limbo, their critical emergency warning role is at risk in a geographically vulnerable area on the Aleutian Islands.
We get tsunami evacuations and tsunami alerts and warnings and watches and also extreme weather. And our station is actually located in the inundation zone, which means that we're at sea level. In the case of a tsunami emergency, we would need to have a backup transmission location.
It's very expensive equipment. It's intricate stuff, and we have to have it to be able to do our job and alert the people about emergencies. So it's important. The transmitter is also important. We're the only broadcast station on the North Slope, 95,000 square miles we cover.
Both station managers have been in contact with Senators Sullivan and Murkowski's offices, who told them they're aware of the seriousness of the situation and are currently working with FEMA on a solution. Alaska's News Source Investigates reached out to the Trump administration to see if the funding freeze is part of the Department of Government Efficiency's review. We'll keep you updated when we get an answer. Covering education, the Anchorage School Board passed a new budget filled with tough cuts to close a $100 million deficit.
But if lawmakers in Juneau approve more funding, some of those cuts could be reversed. Joe Elgood has details on what this means for students, teachers, and programs.
And by a vote of 6 yeas and 1 nay, this budget has been adopted.
The budget passed Tuesday with cuts to address a $100 million deficit, which is why an amendment was made to address that gap. School board members Carl Jacobs and Kelly Lessons presented the amendment, meant to lay out guidelines in the event of a funding increase coming from Juneau. Referred to as Amendment Number 6, It specified a funding increase of $1,000 per student would increase district revenue by over $71 million. In the event of that increase, number 6 directs the funding largely towards direct classroom instruction, as well as student programs.
It does what needs to be done to serve our kids' needs, but it's not a magic wand, right? We're not changing anything here. We're going to be passing a balanced budget tonight, and unless somebody's got $71 million in a suitcase somewhere in this boardroom, I don't think that we can make that happen. So this is a promise. It's a guarantee. In fact, it's a directive.
Of course, whether or not that funding increase goes through is still yet to be seen. And since the district is facing a deficit, the current budget has cuts. But with Amendment 6, many of those cuts would be rolled back if state funding increases. Cuts to high school and middle school sports, the Ignite Gifted program, and cuts of nearly 500 full-time positions, many of them teachers, would be reversed, among others. Also tacked on are small funding increases for math and reading tutors in order to raise proficiency rates, adding a few counselor positions and giving charter schools additional funding. One of the few cuts that number 6 wouldn't roll back are cuts to administration, making up the gap in the deficit. But none of those items will return unless the state increases school funding.
We created those positions to begin with, so I don't think it's controversial at all. Yes, we want to put them back. We would like to not cut them at all. And I just want to say to everybody, we're really hoping to get at least this year's funding again with a couple of percent.
An education funding increase is still being discussed in the Alaska State Legislature, and Holloman says it's unpredictable right now to see where it goes, though it will be important to watch. Joe Allgood, Alaska's news source.
And in the interior, the Fairbanks North Starborough School District is proposing cuts to 167 jobs in next year's budget.
As the district works with the school board to fine-tune the budget, we spoke with the district to learn which positions are currently on the chopping block. That includes 64 teaching positions due to higher class sizes and lower enrollment, plus 70 custodial jobs, which will be contracted out. That's according to Chief Operations Officer Andy DeGraw.
Other cuts may affect administrative staff, secretaries, kitchen workers, and counselors. However, DeGraw expressed confidence that a majority of these can be done without sending out pink slips.
Oftentimes, we might have, a drop in maybe 50 positions, but we don't have to pink slip anybody because we had enough resignations and retirements to just absorb that reduction through attrition. So obviously 168 is a big number, and so we certainly can't guarantee it, but I'm confident that the vast majority of those reductions will be able to absorb through attrition.
The deadline for the budget to be approved by the school board and sent off to the borough for them to look over is April 1st.
And we'll continue to follow the budget process as it develops, and you can watch for updates on our website. When we come back, some diseases are hard to see, but for those who suffer, the impact is undeniable.
A push is underway to recognize chronic fatigue syndrome in Alaska with an official awareness day. Hear from those living with this debilitating condition and why they say recognition is crucial.
And here's a look at your daylight hours across the state. Here in Anchorage, sunrise 8:07, sunset 6:15. That leaves us with 10 hours and 10 minutes of daylight. Into the interior, Fairbanks getting 9 hours and 50 minutes, and Juneau 10 hours and 22. I'll have your full forecast next.
And good morning, everyone. We're back here on your Wednesday.
Yeah, let's check in with meteorologist Tracy Sinclair for a look at today's forecast.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, it is going to be a busy day in parts of Alaska, particularly southeast. And then we're going to see a change in the weather for everybody. But if you're looking for more of winter, I'm not seeing it headed our direction. So let's talk first about the winds in southeast. These are the wind gusts as of this morning, 38 miles per hour around Sitka and then 44 in Ketchikan. This is the storm system that's moving through. We started talking about it yesterday. It is bringing with it some very strong winds, and it's going to have a lot of rain with it. We are expecting to see those winds. Let's try this one more time. Just wanted to show you. If you look down here, we do have a couple of places that are showing up with some local storm reports. And this one, a 68 mile per hour gust in Heidelberg, and then a 75 mile per hour gust in Metlakatla. So these are ones that are locally recorded. So really continuing to see that strong winds. And here's what's going on. This is the jet stream, and that is just driving that system right into the panhandle. But over the next couple of days, this is where we start to see a bit of a shift. This is going to start moving toward the areas to the west, and you'll start to see these lines kind of broaden once again. And as with this next storm system moving up. Now, as these kind of move this direction, what it's going to do is it's going to kind of leave the door open for more warmth across the state. And that's what's going to happen. This is our 850 millibar forecast. You can see we've been staying very warm, and it's going to get warmer. All of this area down here is all going to move close to the freezing mark, and you can just see all this orange. This is actually warmer than we're going to be in South Central. This extends from the interior to Southwest Alaska, so very warm temperatures are expected as we head into the weekend. We've been talking about that. This is that storm system, what it looks like today. As I said, this is the last in that series that kind of have been moving through the Gulf of Alaska. We're almost done with it, at least we get through today, but expect that heavy rain around the southeast area. You can look for that throughout the day. Then we have another one. This one's a little bit farther to the west, more along a typical pattern, because that ridging at the jet stream is going to guide it a little farther to the west. This one is going to bring rain, even some snow into South Central. There is a slight possibility that we could get a little snow here in the Anchorage area with that system, but we'll have to keep watch on that. It really is going to depend on how far west it goes. But talking about some of the rainfall now, this is as of this morning, since midnight, over 1/2 inch already in Petersburg and in Ketchikan, about 1/10 of an inch in Sitka. But when we look forward through the day until 11:30 tonight, you'll see another inch at least of rain around Petersburg and Ketchikan and Sitka. Juneau, you're getting 3/4 of an inch of rain and almost an inch of rain today around Hayes. And of course, at those higher elevations, that is going to be snow. Then we move it even a little farther out, and Sitka keeps gaining, and Juneau, by that point, by the time we move into Thursday, goes to an 1.5 inches. So a lot of precipitation going on in southeast, and then you check out Yakutat at 2.3 inches. So that is all coming through, and we're dealing with those high winds. Expected gusts to 60 miles per hour, but as we said, we've already had a local storm report, guys, of 75 miles per hour. So really some stormy conditions. Try and stay in if you don't have to go out, and make sure that debris in your area is tied down and not being blown around.
Yeah, some good advice there. Thanks, Tracy.
It's known as chronic fatigue syndrome, a debilitating disease for those who have it, and their doctors say it makes life hard to function.
In today's health report, Adrian Peterson reports a bill is now making its way through the state legislature that supporters hope raises awareness.
Who are entirely housebound and mostly bedbound.
That is what former University of Alaska Anchorage professor Hollis Mickey told lawmakers it's like to live with myalgic encephalomyelitis, known as chronic fatigue syndrome, for the last 5 years.
Writing or reading an email can trigger the escalation of symptoms that can last for hours, days, and even weeks. And I struggle every single day to do basic care for myself.
Her testimony, part of a push to establish an awareness day in state law.
I'm realizing that my child is 10 and she's lost her childhood from being homesick. She was hospitalized twice as a 9-year-old. The second time, her fatigue was so deep she couldn't walk.
It's a chronic complex neuroimmune disease.
Anchorage family physician Dr. David Penn talked about the symptoms, including severe pain.
It can manifest as fatigue, it can be brain fog, orthostatic intolerance, which is to say worsening of symptoms with upright posture.
Due to a lack of research, supporters hope an awareness day about the disease impacting 9 million Americans will also help with fundraising. The push to put a new state law into place moves forward. Adrian Peterson, Alaska's news source.
Anchorage Senator Lukey Tobin is sponsoring the bill, and it passed the Senate unanimously.
We'll keep you updated on the progress as it moves forward.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. Click subscribe so you can get the latest podcasts from Alaska's news source automatically, and stay up to date with breaking news and in-depth reporting available for free 24/7 with the Alaska's news source app.